People who used to develop disposable camera film. What's the creepiest, craziest, or most memorable photos you ever developed? Working on a cruise ship, developing crew films. Some guy would get films sent from his wife, we would develop a few raunchy shots of the missus in various stages of undress. We assumed tripod and self-timer were involved. But, no. In one set of shots there was a mirror in the background. Their son, maybe around 10 or 12, was taking the photos. Had a guy drop off a roll of film that he said he found and had no idea what was on it. Developed it and it was almost like a frame by frame of a couch in the middle of a junkyard with two guys pouring gasoline on it and lighting it on fire. When he came to pick it up he was baffled, because he was one of the guys in the photo but had no recollection of that day. There was also the time I developed a roll of an older black male wearing nothing but small lacy women's panties posing on a hotel bed looking devious. Old white guy came to pick them up. Customer owned his own autopsy service and it was easier to just use one camera for all of his work and home photos. There would be pictures of his daughter and then all of a sudden organs and corpses everywhere. It did make the boring days go by faster though. My dad gets crime scene pictures for work that he sends to Walmart for the 1-hour photo development. I don't know if they are ever that graphic, but he told me once about sending domestic violence pictures online and being offered to post a picture of bruises on a coffee mug. I worked at a camera store in my high schools and college days, and we had a photo lab in the back. It was a college town and so there were plenty of photos of young adults exploring their sexuality, etc. I never saw anything that I considered inappropriate, CP or anything like that. We did have a cardboard cover for the machine output hopper so that people wouldn't see any photos of nudity and get upset. However, the most memorable images I remember printing were from 1989, from the Tiananmen Square riots. You know, the man holding up the line of tanks, the tank man? And the 200+ people who were killed? It was a big deal in world at that time, and especially in college towns for a few reasons. First, the protesters were mostly college-aged Chinese. Second, there were a lot of Chinese grad students on campuses in the US, and they felt deeply impacted by this. Many new people protesting in China. We had students coming into the store with photos they took off the TV screen so they could reproduce them in the hundreds to send back to China to circumvent the regime's oppressive control of the media. I'll never forget those events, and the students' desire to do their part, even though they were half the world away. We gave them massive discounts on the orders too. I develop film right now. We got my favorite thing recently. So when you look through a roll, you get some idea of a story. We got one roll recently. Vacation, shots of the various landmarks, and so on. Then guy snorting cocaine in his hotel room. Then 3 shots later, it's him in his underwear, in that same hotel room, holding a goat's head. The flash was on too, so the goat's eyes are glowing. No context, nothing. I love it. I think the cocaine was context. I meant in more, where did he get the goat head? As none of the shots in between were of him, procuring one. When I was about 16 to 17 I worked for CVS as a photo tech. I once had a roll that was a series of trophy pictures of naked women laying all in the same bed. Some of them happened to be under 18 as I went to high school with them. I told my manager she needed to take a look at this, and she said when the guy came in that she wanted to talk to him. I called him, told him his rolls were all set and when he came in she had cops waiting for him. Shit was crazy. Alright. I had a summer job developing photos, among other tasks, at a major American pharmacy/retail chain about 10 years ago. The photo development process itself was fairly uncomplicated, as a machine automated most of the work. I would load the 35mm roll into the compartment, seal it in, select a few settings, and the pictures would pop out in a few minutes. The store wasn't usually very busy, so sometimes I'd look through people's photos. There were the usual assortment of family trips, bar mitzvahs, graduations, awkward proto-selfies, photo fuck-ups of people's feet and blurred walls. But every couple of weeks, I'd load in an inconspicuous roll of film, and out would pop the gore. Corpses, a torso opened up, a stainless steel tray holding some organs, a crushed skull, orange-pink brain clearly visible. It got to be pretty disturbing. I would just finish putting photos of a kid's birthday party into an envelope for the customer to pick up, go to the machine to pick up the next batch, and see multiple puncture and slash wounds on a hairy chest. Or the bloated, opened abdominal cavity of an obese woman. A couple of the other staff would always demand to know when the sick pics would turn up, so they could have a look too. We speculated, for fun, that there was a serial killer in town, and that he was brazenly taunting us with his work. Of course, we had the customer's last name, first initial, and phone number on the packet we'd keep the photos in, ready for them to come and pick it up. He came in one day to pick up his shots while I was working the photo area. When he told me his last name, he must have noticed that I paused a little longer than normal before retrieving his photos, and he gave me a wry little smile. "You've seen my work?" he asked me. I stammered out some kind of affirmative response. His little smile grew a little more. "Don't get any weird ideas, kid, I'm the county coroner." Back in high school I worked at a photo lab. I come in one day, grab a roll, and start doing my thing just like I did every day. The first roll I grabbed had the most convincing UFO pictures I had ever seen, and even 2 or 3 with what appeared to be an alien in a field, again, like nothing I've ever seen. No sci-fi can compete with what I saw in those few pictures. Not 5 minutes later a man walks in asking for the photos I just developed. I hand them to him and he leans in real serious and asks me, "Did you look at them?" I jokingly said, "Sir, I don't have time to look at half the pictures we develop." Then he paid me and left. Besides the CP, borderline CP, and nudists, it would have to be the roll of film that ended with a woman being fucked by a dog. Oh, and the dude who decided to take a picture of his dick in a hot dog bun. No, that is not an innuendo. He did not fill the bun out. I'm guessing. Florida? Ottawa, Canada actually. Are you under some sort of legal obligation to not report what you see? Because if I saw that shit I'd want to call the cops. Fuck their privacy, they're raping children for fuck's sake. I assume you're talking about the CP, and not the other things. Yes, those individuals were reported, and as far as I know the police followed up with every report. I imagine that most ended up being innocent, but we erred on the side of caution. Not memorable for the photos, but for the whole situation. A guy comes in saying he wants to pick up his photos, so as usual we take his name and go to the drawer to look for them. Nothing there by that name. I say, perhaps another name? No, he says, so I asked when he brought the film in to be developed. It was a disposable camera, says the guy. I say, okay, so when did you bring in the camera to be developed? It was a disposable camera, he says. After a bit of toing and froing, turns out he took the term disposable camera literally, so threw it in the bin right after using it. When I asked him how he expected the photos to get to us from the bin, he said, I don't know, satellites or something? Fuck me. This was 1999. Like a 5-pound cardboard camera is gonna have satellite communication for fuck's sake. LMFAO. Reminds me of a friend who worked in her dad's photo lab in the 80s. This woman brought her Instamatic type camera back because all the pictures are blurry, and it keeps burning my forehead. What the fuck? Friend says, do you have your camera with you? Lady pulls it out. My friend looks at it for a second or two and says, can you show me how you take a picture? Yep, lady had it backwards. Was looking into the lens, not the viewfinder, and the small flash on the top was in contact with her forehead. My friend could not speak for laughing and the woman got all pissy with her for it. Used to develop film from a prison. They'd give the inmates disposable cameras for some reason. I think they were instructed to take pictures of their friends so the inmates would reveal who's in what gang, I don't know. Anywho, between pictures of dudes making gang signs and posing in groups there would be pictures of finger paintings, which I thought was kind of sweet. Oh hey, I used to develop prison photos too. Were the finger painting images common? That's awesome. On top of the usual gang signs and such, we'd also occasionally see some impromptu photo shoots with girlfriends/wives in the conjugal trailers. And one time there were photos of what I think was an attempt at homemade toilet booze. So my aunt has a picture of her and her kids in front of their farmhouse. Unfortunately, she accidentally superimposed the picture of her mother-in-law and her funeral casket so she was hovering in the sky above her grandchildren. My cousin called it grandma levitating, and my aunt had it in her house for years. Edit, thanks for the upvotes, guys. Unfortunately, I cannot post the pictures because it's at my aunt's house several hours away, and they haven't talked to me since they found out I voted for Hillary. I worked at a retail store that you could pick up your packs of photos from a large bin. Occasionally there would be a torn pack and a couple photos would fall out between the inventory truck and the customer pickup bin. One such time, it was the photo index card that I found on the ground. Picked it up and looked at it. Showed a sequence of pictures, Some grandma's birthday party, kids playing, the, presumably, mom naked, the mom and dude having sex, random family gathering and portraits, and then a Thanksgiving. I made some poor soul develop pics of me posed as Rose from the Titanic. Fully nude, jewelry and all. I'm a dude. You sure sound like tons of fun. It was part of a gift for a friend when they were going abroad. Clearly they needed something beautiful and memorable. Never worked with physical film other than to box it up to ship to Fujifilm, but a good part of my job right now is printing people's photo orders. Most of it is pretty boring and typical. Occasional sexy selfies or the guy with the big beautiful woman fetish. And then there was the time a few weeks ago I printed a picture of a guy laying in the middle of the street, head blown off and brains strewn everywhere. The kicker to me was that it was mixed in with other innocent pictures of kids and scenery. And then suddenly, brains. I work in a lab now. We have a guy who goes to places like Guatemala, following the death squads around, amazing photos, and that's like 75% of his roles. The other 25% is kids playing soccer in the streets there. Equally amazing shots, great photographer, just kinda weird to go from scanning random vacation shots to pools of blood on the ground and then kids playing. When I was in the Navy I had a disposable camera, now submariners are crazy, so I left the camera in the sonar shack. Well, when we pulled into port I sent the camera off to my wife to develop. She told me that they wouldn't develop all the pictures, my shipmates had taken a bunch of pictures of their dicks. I left a digital camera on my cot at a forward operating base in Iraq with a bunch of Marines. Surprisingly no dictures, but of course there were Marines in various states of undress and feigned homoerotic poses. Of course there were. And my senior year of high school my class went camping and a girl left her disposable camera unattended. 2 other girls were walking around with a video camera and asked to take a picture of my bare ass, so not only was there a double copy photo of my bare ass but there's a video of them taking a picture of it. The girl's mother was the first one to see it because they were going through the pictures together. I worked at a photo lab for 3 years back in the 90s, and I have some pretty good ones. Most of the photos that people tried to take that were not safe for work were terrible. They would usually buy one of the crappy disposable cameras, without a flash, and take the pictures in a poorly lit bedroom where the pictures would come out terribly. I did have one high school friend privately ask me to develop photos of her for her boyfriend. They were very tame, but it was weird seeing her with stuffed animals strategically placed over her body. As you can imagine, whenever there were risque pictures, we all wanted to see, so it was a bit of a sideshow when they came in. It wasn't often, but it did happen. There were even a couple of times where we had to decide not to print them based on what we saw in the negatives. Nothing creepy, but usually too sexually explicit to develop in our lab. The conversation with the customer was always a bit awkward, but if they had the courage to drop the pictures off, they were usually prepared to get that information in private. My best story was from about 1996 or so if I recall correctly. I worked at a photo lab in Fort Worth, Texas, very close to the TCU campus and near the Colonial Golf Course. One day in the spring, a guy came in with about 50 rolls of film and wanted them developed immediately. He wasn't rude, but he was in a huge hurry. We weren't cheap, but he didn't care. Turns out there was a dude named Tiger Woods playing the Colonial Golf Tournament, and every single picture, 36 exposure rolls, was of Tiger. He was getting them developed so he could rush back and sell them. We got the film developed as quickly as possible and back to him and he was gone. I sincerely regret not making a few extra copies for myself. Which would have been against the rules, but I should have done it. The creepiest thing was finding out that the guy who worked with me was printing doubles of anything that was out of the norm, and had them all in photo albums in his apartment. I was shocked to see that he had about 40 photo albums, full of our customers' photos in his own private collection. Creeped me out a little, especially since lots of the photos were of the not safe for work variety. I haven't personally experienced anything weird, other than seeing about 1/3 of a dick in one pic. My lab manager has told me though that he's seen some weird shit in his day. One time he had a fairly large woman develop some photos, which included shots of her in lingerie. After the photos were developed and handed to her, the woman asks my manager, in a kind of embarrassed voice, "Did you see any of the photos?" After saying he did, she leaned in a little close and whispered, "Did you like them?" I think I remember him saying too that he once found someone trying to develop what was essentially CP. My manager informed the customer that he had called the police. I worked on a photo desk in a supermarket for 3 years. The craziest one I ever had was when a guy asked us to print off his wedding pictures from his phone. Didn't realize he'd selected everything on there to be printed, and ended up with a bunch of printouts of him getting it on with another guy just before the wedding. Back in the early 90s, our grocery store developed film. One pic made no sense in the negative, but when printed produced a point of view shot of a guy fucking a handbag. You could see all the miscellaneous purse contents around the cock. Along the same lines, I worked for a company that had a photo printing site that did photo books and gifts. Some of the more memorable photos I recall going through the system. A topless elderly woman with her naked boobs resting on the keys of a piano. The infamous poop book. A client must have had some sort of fecal fetish, as he created a photo book comprised of various images of his poop. The book culminated in a toilet selfie. It looked like the camera was placed inside the toilet bowl, as you could see the rim of the seat and everything, and the guy was standing over the toilet. He ordered about 10 copies too, assumedly for his other fecal fetish friends. Edit, I failed to mention that he was standing over the bowl completely nude, and you could definitely see his junk. Guess that was an important detail. I worked at a 1-hour place that developed film back in the late 90s. This was pre-digital and we hand-corrected each pic for color and exposure. It's way less intense than it sounds, so we saw everything. They also didn't take out the nudes and refused to develop them, like some places. Common things I saw. 1. So many dick pics. So many. The funniest one was a guy in those smiley-faced Joe boxers, black silk with a red face, and his sloppy post-sex half-mast dong as a nose. 2. Naked women, flashing boobs, under the table labia shots. 3. Sex. Some of the odder, sad, creepy stuff I saw. 1. We had a client who always brought rolls of what looked like mediocre quality nude model pics. Not the girls, but the photographic quality. They were on a basic white background. They were the formulaic poses, and the girls didn't look particularly stoked to be there. One day, he brings 3 rolls in and we get to developing. It's myself and my friend in the shop at the time and I was on the printer. The 3 rolls were of 2 women, a bunch of individual pics, and some together. Their demeanor seemed to go downhill as their state of undress increased, smiling to sad to almost blank. I got a bad feeling and showed my friend. She said she'd developed some of the others the previous day that looked off too. Luckily he hadn't picked them up when he dropped these off. The girls looked drugged. We immediately called the cops. It was a 1-hour job. Luckily, they got there before he did. Our boss was pissed that we breached client confidentiality. When the article came out 3 days later that he'd drug girls, photographed them, and then sexually molest them, including some who were 15 and 16, I felt vindicated, and guilty that I hadn't paid more attention before. 2. A woman would always bring in pics of her terminally ill daughter enjoying life, trips to Disney and other exotic locales, birthday party, half-birthday party, etc. One day, she came in and told us the girl had passed. She hands us 2 rolls and says these are the last she has of her girl. We were all sad because we'd sort of gotten to know her through her smile in the pictures. Well, the last 2 rolls were of this girl in her casket, and people from the funeral posing with her. Okay, I get it, some people need to document things to heal. No judgment. When it came time for her to send out thank you cards to people for supporting them, she came in for 200 reprints of a picture of her daughter. Smiling on one of her trips? At the birthday party? With her siblings? Nope. In the casket. It broke my heart.